So everybody, thanks for tuning in for the last episode. Welcome to the Journey Podcast, episode 3. Today I'm joined with Admirable David McGrath. Today myself and David are going to be discussing two main topics of drug addiction and mental health. David's joined me today to share and shed light on his personal journey on the road to recovery from drug addiction. And the effects it had on his life and his mental health. So David, look, just really want to say absolutely delighted that you've came on, and really thankful that you came on to shed light. So I suppose just for people tuning in, we might as well start from the beginning. Do you want to kind of give us a snapshot of how your drug addiction started, and what kind of drugs it was and stuff like that, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely, Andrew, and it's a pleasure to come on and talk about this experience, because it's obviously something that I'm very passionate about after going through. So thanks very much for having me on.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I suppose to start from the start, I'll go into my mental health first of all, because many addictions, which is a mental health problem, which I have now learned from going through the journey and the services, was formed through my mental health problems. So I suppose, just as a teenager, like any teenager, I struggled a lot with who I was as a person. I struggled to find my where I belonged, and I always thought I was different. I always had like friends. I was always around a core group, but I always remember never thinking the way they thought, and I struggled with that a lot, And I used to always think, I just don't think like the same as people. I thought I was weird. I thought I was different. I struggled with that, and I know that can be what a lot of people can be in those times, because when you're a teenager, you have to find yourself and stuff,
Yeah, absolutely.
So I suppose I was big into sport and stuff. Like alcohol or drugs was never really a thing that I ever even thought about, up until I suppose the age of 15. Was when I first was introduced to alcohol, and I was then introduced to which became my drug of choice, which was cocaine. I was introduced to that at 15 by peer pressure, like many people. I was a friend of mine at the time was holding some cocaine for a couple of people, and I ended up in the house with them, and they kind of out through peer pressure, I done cocaine with them. I remember doing that drug, and the reason it became my drug of choice is because there's only one way of putting it. I loved it, When I first done cocaine, it gave me the feeling that it gave me. It took all of those feelings of me feeling different and not fitting in, and all of a sudden I became confident. I had all of this energy about me, and it just gave me a sense. It gave me a sense of
escape.
It gave me. Yeah, basically, it just made me. It made me almost feel invincible. That's the best way to describe that drug,
Yeah.
So I suppose that was my first time taking cocaine. I didn't become addicted to it straight away. It was a progressive thing, I could do it one weekend and leave it for a month, and I could do it again, But I suppose as I went up through my teenage years and my early 20s, a lot of stuff happened to me. Some mistakes were made on my behalf, which involved other people. I won't go completely into what happened because there's other people who were involved. But I had to deal with those things, and I didn't deal with them in the right way. But how I formed my addiction was, I remembered that feeling that cocaine had given me the first time I had taken it, and every time I had taken it after. And what I done was I turned to that as a coping mechanism for the stuff that was going on in my life and my mental health problems at the time, Yeah, so I suppose as time went on, then it was every weekend when I would say I became a problem user of cocaine. Now, there's the reason why I say problem user, I would not have called myself an addict at this point. A problem user would be someone who probably every weekend would delve into doing cocaine. You know, that's when I was a problem user. I could leave it at the weekend. I'd go to work on a Monday, and it would be like that. But what would happen was, when it started to really become a problem, and I started to notice, was if I done it on a Friday or a Saturday, when I went into work on the Monday, come the Tuesday, I was already thinking about Friday and Saturday and when I was going to do cocaine again. So it was already taking over my thinking. It was already on my mind before I went to use, you know. And that wasn't right. I knew at the time that wasn't right. I knew this is a problem here. And I was also experiencing a lot of side effects from like paranoia. I was very, very paranoid, you know. A lot of anything would kind of set me off. So I suppose I started to bring it into midweek use, and then I'd do it on a Tuesday night, I'd do it on a Wednesday night, all only was drinking alcohol. It was drink was the link for me. Every time I picked up a drink, cocaine was going to be involved, you know, so that was always the link. So it started really having a really bad effect on my mental health, you know. I was in what is known as a cocaine-induced psychosis, which I didn't know I was in at the time. Now, going through the services and learning, I now know that those thoughts I was experiencing was a psychosis induced by my use. And I suppose when my addiction really took off, so like I said, I only ever used to associate it with alcohol. Yeah. And when my addiction really took off was, I gave up alcohol for around 2 months because I knew that was my link to doing cocaine. And one day I just got this really, really overwhelming craving to use cocaine without drinking. And it was so, so powerful that I just gave in to it, you know. And I made a phone call, and I got some cocaine, and I've done it without alcohol, which many people would probably know as dry sniffing, people would call it, you know. That was what people would call it on the street, you know. And that was it. I loved it, and that meant that I was going to do cocaine anytime, anywhere, because I didn't need alcohol anymore to do it, you know.
You crossed that line.
I crossed that line, exactly. That was when, and you know what, just, it's okay if I use a little bit of language.
Yeah, 100%. Course away, man. Course away, yeah. There's no filter on this.
Perfect. The moment I used cocaine dry, that was when I knew I was fucked.
Yeah.
That's when I knew it. Like, I remember saying it that day. I remember saying, I'm fucked, because I knew I had a problem with it before. And when I done it, and I knew the consequences of going and getting that cocaine that day and doing it on its own, and where that could lead to. I didn't really know where it was going to bring me, you know. But that was when my full blown addiction and my cocaine dependency really formed, like, you know.
That's very, very interesting, because like, I think that's a perfect example, David, of, you know, the mental health issues and the crime and the drug abuse in Ireland, in Dublin, should I say, because it'd be fair enough to say, especially where I'm from, it's easier to get a bag of coke than it is to get a Domino's, you know what I mean? And that's being blatantly honest with you. You know, 15, 16, you don't really know what's going on. You're going through a transition of going to be a man at 18. Well, so you think you are, and anyways. And then, you know, you often hear this, you're a subject of your environment, and it's a true saying, because what's going on around you, you know, the probability of you taking part in it is very high. And, you know, you can't really choose your environment when you're 16. You don't know any better. So how did that transition into, like, when did it become, what age were you when it started becoming a serious problem?
I think what you said there hit the nail on the head as well, about, like, being at that age, and we become a product of our environment, you know, when we're in it, and like you said, I was laughing there as well when you said, because I use that terminology as well, you can get a bag of coke quicker than a packet of crisps around there. That's what I always used to
it's
say.
True.
You know?
Yeah, it's true.
It is. It's completely true, and that's, unfortunately, that's the society we live in, because this drug is glamorized, but my story will not make it glamorous. There was nothing glamorous about what I went through, you know. There was absolutely nothing glamorous. But to answer your question, so like I said, 15 was and like I said, I loved cocaine the first time I done it. Alcohol, not so much. I wasn't really a big fan of alcohol, you know. I seemed to the upper buzz, you know, that was me. You know, I loved the feeling of that euphoric feeling and feeling alive, you know, and that's what cocaine gave me. So I probably would have, out of all of my friends, if you were in a house party, I would be the one who would instigate getting the cocaine. I would be the one who would say, let's get coke tonight, you know. I was that person, you know. So looking back at the time, I didn't see that as a thing or a problem. But now, after what I've gone through, if there was going to be one person out of my friends who got addicted to cocaine, it was going to be me, you know. Obviously that's what happened. But yeah, I suppose, but I was able to put it down, you know. I was able to leave it. I think as well, I was taking cocaine. It's an expensive drug, you have to remember. So
I was going to say that financially,
so,
you're talking fucking mad money, like, aren't you?
Exactly. So at that time, I didn't really have the money, and I remember that was kind of like when we were coming into a recession, and cocaine wasn't really, because like I said, it's a money drug. I remember ecstasy then came in, you know, and that was the kind of the drug that took over from cocaine. But once that was just a thing where I do every couple of weekends, and it was never really a problem, I would say, you know. But not saying knocking down and going and taking ecstasy, but I'm just saying I never thought of that as a it was part of my using, I suppose.
Yeah.
But so then I suppose, like I said, when those things happened to me, and I was trying to find ways of, like you said, escaping, you know. It was all about escaping my own thoughts. I couldn't sit with me as a person. I couldn't sit with who I was. I couldn't sit with some of the mistakes that I had made. On a daily basis, I just suffered with my mental health. I'm a very deep thinker. I'm a very deep person. I go into things a lot. And that's what would lead me to not being able to sit with my own thoughts. And I was always trying to escape my own head, you know. The only way to get away from your own head is either deal with those problems or look for it in a substance or something like that, you know. And that's what I done, you know.
What advice could you give somebody that's in that position, you know, coming up? They're not really sure who they are. They're in with the wrong crowd, and you know, they might be leaning towards the drug escapology type thing. What advice could you give somebody if you could go back in time? What would you change, like, and give your younger self advice?
That's a really good question, Andrew, and it's something that definitely needs to. I suppose I always say, if I had this David to talk to that David, what would I say to him? So that question is very is on the button, and I remember in school they would tell you about the side effects of the drugs, you know, and they give you the short-term effects and the long-term effects. I actually remember doing this in a class in school. I think it was CSPA or something. I had tried cocaine, and I remember the short-term effects were all good things. The long-term effects were all bad things, like suffering with your mental health, stuff like that. But as a 15, 16-year-old, I'm like, I don't care about the long-term effects. So I'm
sorting this out right now, like.
Exactly. So it's very, very hard to talk with 15 and 16-year-olds, because I know me at 15 and 16, I thought I knew everything, you know. You know, but what I can say is, in my recovery, I have met loads of people, right? And every story is the same. Now, they're different in terms of addiction takes us to different places. It might leave some homeless, just different substances, you know. But what I have learned is it brings us all to our knees. Nobody gets away with taking drugs and not getting away with, and taking drugs on a daily basis and get away with the long-term side effects. You just don't get away with it. It's as simple as that. If you're someone who's watching this and you're someone who is struggling to open up, if you're struggling with your mental health, like you said, the stigma around it and the shame and the guilt of making mistakes and stuff like that. What I have learned, I wish I had just opened up sooner. Talking is the best thing. Me coming on here and doing this now, this is as much for me as it is for giving back to someone, because what it's also doing for me is it's also giving me another healing, because I'm opening up, I'm being honest about my past, and I'm talking about it. So very I get a lot I get a lot from this, as well as I want to give back to people. So if there's someone who's thinking about going down that road, I'm telling you now, you do not get away with it. I'm an NA member, and in NA they say it only leads to certain places, and that's jails, institutions, and death, and that's all you see. And now I escaped the jails and the institutions, but where I spent my time was in my head. I was locked up in my head 24/7. That was my 24-hour lockup. I was a complete prisoner in my own mind. Yeah. I spent 90% of my time in my bedroom using cocaine on my own, with the doors locked, the blinds pulled. I wasn't using with anybody. There was no fun in what I was doing. It was pure escape in reality, And it's like I said, I avoided all of those, and I just escaped death as well, And there's no life in it, but there's an amazing life in recovery. There's an amazing life outside of taking drugs. You just have to be. If you're in a bad place now and you're taking drugs, you have to want to do it. You have to be open, and you have to be willing to learn. And you have to listen to the people who went before you, and listen to their advice. Because there's a reason why they are where they are in their life now. So that's what I would say to anybody. Just open up. Find someone who you trust in. Find someone who you can trust with your thoughts, because that was the hardest part for me, I suppose. You know yourself, if you're experiencing these mad thoughts, because that's what they are. They're insane. It's an insane way of thinking that's going on inside your head, and you think nobody else is experiencing that, but there is, because there's other people out here experiencing the same thoughts as us. And when you find those people, you identify with them and you open up to them. Like NA, when I log on to a meeting, there's 50 other people who think the same way I think, who have been through the same thing.
Like-minded people.
Like-minded people, and they know exactly what I am talking about, and they don't judge me. They don't judge me for it. There's no judgment in the room.
That's the big one.
And that is the big one. There's no judgment in the room. And people, I remember I was that person. Nobody cares about me. Nobody gives a fuck. Nobody wants to help me. They do. People want to help. There's some amazing people. I promise you, I have met I've met people who have been in 20, 40, 30-year heroin addictions on the street, and are clean over 10 years now, and are doing amazing things with their life. And when you meet those people, all you can do is get inspired by that. How can you not get inspired by someone who has overcome the ultimate addiction, and spent all those years on the street, and come out of it? And that's what it's all about. It's in the realms. It's all about, it's one addict to another. It's about helping the still suffering, someone who still suffers with that mental health and addiction.
I actually couldn't agree with you more. I think what you said about when you're suffering with your mental health, you're anxious, and especially if you have a drug addiction, all them mixed in a cocktail, and somebody it's very easy for someone to say, "Oh, make sure you talk to somebody if you're suffering with your mental health," but you're feeling so confined at that point in time, you don't want to bother or burden someone. So what you said is perfect. You need to trust someone, that one person that you trust, that's not going to judge you, because you're always afraid of, what if he says this, or I'm just going to bother this person, I don't want to really bother anyone, and you just sit in this sort of bubble of bad thoughts, negative thoughts, and you get the escapology, like you said, you do what you need to do to overcome that. Then what made you, so you said from a young age you were suffering with your mental health, you didn't really know who you were, then it led into every weekend, and then you crossed the line, and like you said, you dry sniffed, and that to me is you've crossed the last line, and like you said, you knew you kind of fucked up. How long was it before you took the steps to recovery, and then what motivated you to start that recovery process?
Yeah, so I suppose, my addiction was very well hidden. I hid my addiction very well. So, just a little, as my profession is, I'm a barber by trade, okay? So,
I know it's the fresh haircut.
I'm always, I suppose, well groomed and stuff. I'd always have like my hair fresh. Yeah, I'd always have my hair fresh, my beard fresh. So like to the eye, you couldn't see my addiction, you know.
Yeah.
Like you touched on the heroin addiction there, you know, and a lot of the times after a long period of time of someone using heroin, the physical decline on their body is very, very noticeable, and it can stay with them forever, you know.
Yeah.
Cocaine is, I say, at least 90% psychological, you know. There's no real physical pull off it, like you don't get physical withdrawals, it's all mental, you know, which is actually the toughest part. So to answer your question, so I was able to hide my addiction very well, you know, and let's face it, a small bag of cocaine can stay in your pocket. If you went to a toilet, you do a bump and you walk back out, you know.
Yeah.
Now, my behaviours were not normal. I was doing things that weren't not normal. People were starting to notice the cracks in my behaviours. I was saying a lot of things. I was like I said, I was in a psychosis. I was very paranoid. I was accusing people of all sorts, you know. I was just saying like mad stuff. So there was a lot of things starting to show, you know. And I suppose like I was going on for my everyday using was going on for about 3 years, and I kind of had this big blowout. I ended up back at my ex-partner's house and kind of caused a lot of trouble. Police was called. Yeah, like don't want to go too much into that.
Yeah.
But anyway,
you can pay. I can get the picture.
Made me say, right, exactly. I need to do something here. I said, right. So I said to them, look, I have a cocaine. I'm strung out on cocaine, and it started to make sense to them. Like, my behaviour started to make sense then. Like, they obviously knew there was something up, but they didn't know exactly what was up. So I rang the addiction helpline. They put me in touch with the services in my area. I found a drug counsellor, Jerry, his name is. He works up in the Rialto drug team, and he's an amazing man. What that man has done for me in the last 2 years, this is what I'm saying about meeting amazing people, you know. This man just completely, like, I went in and straight away I just clicked with this man, you know. I just trusted him straight away.
Yeah.
He's been through the similar stuff that I've been through. So we both have that common ground. When he tells me, Dave, I understand what you're going through, I believe he understands it because he's been through that, you know.
Yeah.
So straight away that gives me a comfort that this man has been through what I've been through and he's come out the other side. There's hope there for me, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that led me to my recovery. So I was working with him, but unfortunately, he can only give me like 40 minutes to an hour once a week. That's not enough for someone to get right, because you have to remember you're on your own for the rest of the time. But what I wasn't doing was I wasn't changing my surroundings. I wasn't stopping hanging around with the same people. I was still associating myself with all the areas that I was associated with before. I was just not using off of self-will. So I was never really, and I wasn't dealing with my issues. I wasn't dealing with the problems that was leading me to use. So I was always just, a relapse was always around the corner, you know.
Yeah.
It was always around the corner. So that was 3 years ago, first time into recovery. So I suppose fast forward, relapse after relapse, more pain, more misery, all the same stuff. Like, it just gets darker and darker, you know. Nothing changes. When you're in recovery, if you relapse, it gets worse every time. So if I'm playing 6 months, what I've learned is the minute I pick back up that drug, I pick up where I left off 6 months ago. Completely straight back into the same pain, the same misery. The people haven't changed, the drug hasn't changed, nothing has changed, you know.
All the hard work you done, gone.
Completely.
Fuck.
Exactly, Andrew. It's completely gone. It's out the window. All that, and you have to remember you've made a lot of leeway mentally, but straight away that substance brings you back in, you know. Unfortunately, pain has no memory. So what I found is, like, when I later on down the line in recovery, I would start to use off of good feeling. If it was sunny out, I'm going to get a few bottles. I'm going to get a bag of Coke. I feel good about myself today. And then I'm back into that vicious cycle again. I'm back in the bedroom. I can't look people in the eye anymore. I'm paranoid. I'm using coke on my own. And that's exactly how it went. So it got really bad. It affected my relationship. Affected my friendships. Affected everything. Affected work. I have a young daughter. I was always physically present, but I wasn't mentally present. You know, I wasn't emotionally. I was emotionally detached from everything else that was going on in my life, and mentally detached. Like, you know, the minute I opened my eyes, it was, how am I gonna get cocaine today? You know, like the minute I opened my eyes, I just wanted it. You know, so yeah, I got really, really bad. I was using really. I used to have one source who I would get me cocaine off, who I would trust, you know. Yeah. And when it got really bad, I just started taking it off of anybody, everyone and anyone, whoever had it, I'd take it off.
Whoever,
you know?
Could give you the fix.
Exactly. At this stage of the game, I didn't care anymore if it was white. I was putting it up my nose. I didn't, like, you know. It was. I wasn't getting that in Elva anymore. I really wasn't. I wasn't. It was just. I was just pure vicious cycle. Didn't know how to get out of it. Didn't want to get out of it almost. I didn't want to get out of it. It was a crazy time. So I decided, this is how mad this is. I decided 1 week, right, this is the time I'm gonna have to make. We were just coming into the lockdown, okay? Just coming into the first lockdown, and I was completely fucked. I was suicidal. I was experiencing voices in my head. There was people telling me stuff in my head. I was in a really, really bad psychosis, you know. I said, right, this is time to make a change. So I made a phone call to Kilmoyan, because I wanted to go into rehab, you know. So I was looking to go in for 5 months into Kilmoyan. I had spoken to a man on the phone. He said, look, it's very difficult to get in at these times because it's COVID, yada, yada, yada. So I was like, right, no problem. He said, what we'll do is, this was on the Thursday, he said, do you think you'll be all right until Monday? And we'll give you a phone call back then. You can speak to one of the officers. We'll assess you and we'll go from there. So I said, yeah, of course, 100%. I'm ready. I need to do this. I got through the Thursday clean. My last day of using was the Wednesday. I got through the Thursday clean and I got through the Friday clean. Saturday came and the addict inside me said, look, you're gonna on Monday is when you really are gonna step up. Let's have one last blowout. Fuck it, you know.
Yeah.
So I decided to go and source some cocaine. I got it off someone who I didn't really know too well. But anyway, went back, used the cocaine. Didn't feel right. It didn't even taste right, you know. I knew I wasn't at the getting. But like I said, if it was white, I was gonna put it up my nose. That's the way I was at the time. So, anyway, that I overdosed that night. So what happened was I went into a psychotic. I had a psychotic episode, which then led to a seizure. So I was experiencing like voices. People were after me in my own head.
Was this while you were on it? Like at that point in time, or was it on a come down, or was?
No. While I was using, I still had some left, and so I was running away from people who weren't actually there. I ended up back in the bedroom in a state. I had a seizure. The ambulance came. I was rushed to hospital. My liver and my kidneys started to fail because the toxins from the drugs started to run through the liver and the kidneys, so they started to fail. So anyway, I woke up the next day in the hospital, tubes everywhere, and the doctor says to me, she asked me, now, I only ever took cocaine or alcohol, both of them together. I never touched any other drugs. They were my two drugs. She asked me how many diazepam had I taken. They're known as benzos on the street, sleeping tablets.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't take sleeping tablets, never have. She said, okay, no problem. She left me. She came back to me later on with my toxicology report. And so this is very important to people. You do not know what you're putting into your body, you know. So my toxicology report came back. There was high levels of diazepam benzos, high levels of paracetamol, cocaine and alcohol. So cocaine and alcohol, which is my drug of choice, so I was willingly taking those.
Yeah.
The other two, I didn't know I was taking them. So whoever it was cut down my cocaine with those two other drugs, which led to the overdose. Because my body was not used to taking that much in, you know?
Yeah.
And I had been associating myself with all of these people, all of these places and all of these things for years in my using. And when I woke up in that bed, the only person flying down the phone was me ma, you know. I had, like, you know, it was as simple as that. I had just broken me ma's heart, you know. I had nearly left her without a son. I had nearly left my daughter without a father. Were they going to look after, was all those people going to look after my daughter and my man? No, I was going to be forgotten about. And I just remember lying in that bed. And I'm even getting a little bit emotional now thinking about it, you know. It was a very emotional day for me. And I remember just lying there, you know. And I just thought to myself, what the fuck, like, I was 40, I had just turned 40. And the only thing I had to achieve was a drug overdose. Other than my daughter, I had achieved nothing with my life. Absolutely nothing. Other than I had my career, I had my profession, but I hadn't achieved that. I was spending every single penny I had on this drug, and I just said to myself, "This is enough, you know. This is enough." So I had about a week and a half in that hospital. I put a plan in place in my head, and I said, "I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna execute that plan, and I'm gonna be completely selfish." And I'm going to cut everybody out of my life who shouldn't be in my life. And that's what I've done. I came out and I slowly cut every single person out of my life that was not that they weren't good for my life. If they, in a way, triggered me to use drugs, or if I thought they were a problem, which led me to go to a bad place, I cut them out of my life. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. But my God, has been the most rewarding thing I've ever done. The rewards I've gotten back from it now, I've just gotten my life back, you know, completely got my life back.
Man, that's heartbreaking. You're talking about getting emotional. I'm literally nearly getting emotional listening to that.
It's heavy stuff, but it's the truth of it, Andrew. It's the harsh reality of getting caught up in that vicious cycle. It's the harsh reality of it, and like I always said to myself, I used to think, like, you hear about people overdosing all the time, you know, and
it'd never be
me.
It's
always the way. It's always the way, Andrew, until it's on your doorstep. And you know, I should have died when I went to the hospital. Your normal liver results should be when they take your blood, your liver should be 300 should be the blood intake. Mine had spiked to 2,000. By the time I arrived to the hospital, they told me only I was a young and generally healthy man, I wouldn't have survived, you know. And I don't put it down to that. I put it down to someone was with me that night, you know. I put it down that there was a reason that I survived. And I think one of the reasons is to tell me story for people to realise the dangers of the so-called cool drug. Yeah, and I do that all the time because, let's face it, everybody, you talked about heroin. Heroin is seen as the dirty drug. Cocaine is seen as the cool drug. Cocaine ripped me apart just like it ripped a heroin addict apart, and it's as simple as that, you know. It's just the way it is.
Yeah. Oh, jeez, man, that's mental. Like, that's actually such a good insight. And I can see you're literally speaking from the heart, and
I'm nearly reliving it as well, you know. It's something that you know, like I said, I get a healing from that now, you know.
What is I suppose, right, so like looking back on just to touch on a point that you said, it's the stigma around heroin, everyone knows it now, but you know, cocaine is like everybody kind of does it, and it's socially accepted. It's nearly normalised to do it, you know, and
it's normal, exactly.
I think it's going to take for people like you, and like you said, you met great people in recovery that have overcame such a challenge to come out and speak about that, and not a lot of people would do that. So like, it's a complete hats off to yourself, man. And I suppose what's the what's the number one objective for yourself now going forward? Are you going to continue to, keep raising awareness, keep talking about it, because I see your Instagram is full of value, like full of insight and so honest, and it's so admirable.
Yeah, I had another page that I was doing for a couple of months. It was called Recovered. It was an Instagram page where I done some videos to share similar stuff what I've just spoken about with you for people. Yeah. And I also got some other addicts, recovered addicts involved, and they shared their stories, because I think we live in a social media world, and this stuff is not being brought to light too much on social media,
No.
we see fake every day on social media, There's you can't get any more real than what we and you have just spoken about, Andrew, and it's very, very relevant to the times that we live in now, And we're in the toughest times we've ever been in. People are actually forming addictions in these times, People who are not addicted before to something, they have nothing else to do and they're escaping through something, and they formed addictions, and I know that because I'm using the services, and I know the people who are trying to get people in, and there's a lot of people reaching out to me for advice in my area because they see myself getting clean, and it breaks me heart, it really does. That drug in particular, cocaine, we're in a pandemic, but we've been in an epidemic for a long, long time, and that's the cocaine epidemic, and it's as simple as that. It's so normalised, like you said, I remember, when I was growing up as a teenager, you had to be really discreet about taking cocaine. Now lads just don't even go to the toilet in the pub anymore, They just do it at the bar, It's absolutely, it's mind blowing. It really is mind blowing, and it's just I suppose it's the people's drug, isn't it? Everybody it's mad. But I suppose there's people who can go their whole lives recreationally taking cocaine, But
100%.
if you're one of those people like me who likes it a bit more than the average person, who is suffering with their mental health, who is trying to escape, it's not going to get any better. It's going to get worse. So, like we spoke about earlier on, just reach out and try. Don't let it go. Don't let it get worse, because it's like I said, there's nothing in it. It's a downward spiral. It just depends on how quick you're going to go,
Yeah.
And that's as simple as that, really,
Yeah. No, and I completely agree with everything you said. It's hard hitting topics. It's relevant, and there's not enough people. Not people, I suppose. There's not enough talk about it. Like, you see people on Instagram or social media. Make sure mental health. Make sure you look out for your mental health. Make sure you talk to someone. But talk to who? Talk to them about what? You know what I mean? You're afraid to open your mouth because you feel like you're burdening someone. So more of this is definitely going to be a positive impact on people.
100%. Yeah, and the reason why I bring the recovered page to Instagram, because when I found NA, which I touched on a small bit, but this was the big part of my recovery. So after the overdose, I decided I couldn't get into the residential rehab. So someone said to me, "Why don't you not try the NA?" And we were coming into a lockdown. There was no physical meetings. It was all done through Zoom. So I started to do the meetings, and I was getting amazing identification, because, like I said, there was 50 other addicts in the room talking the same language that I was talking.
Yeah, exactly.
They weren't so when I first logged in, I was shaking, I was nervous, I was sweating, because I was still very, very early in my recovery. And then I remember my first meeting, the guy who shared was 20 years clean. You could do a movie on this guy, when you listen to his life story.
Yeah.
It was like listening. It was this guy, it could be a movie. And straight away I said, if that guy can do it, then I can do it, because my story is not as gory and as gruesome as his, but he had 20 years on me in his addiction. Another 20 years from now, if I survived those 20 years of my addiction, I'll be telling the exact same stories as him, And it was just because I'm I'm 30, he was like 50. I was getting it a little bit earlier than him, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I bring the recovered page, because not a lot of people know about these rooms. They don't know about the powers of them, the amazing work that goes on inside those rooms. Like, you know, like when we're struggling and we want help. It's a daunting process to hold your hand up and say, I need help, and to reach out to the people who are going to help you. It's very daunting. And the best way I can describe it to someone, if they're watching this and if they're already trying to make the change, or if they might decide to want to make the change after listening to my story, it's like a bereavement process. So when you lose somebody, you go through different stages of grief. Yeah. The same way in recovery is very much the same. What I found is you go through different stages of it, you know, and it's because you have to remember, drugs were part of my life for so long. People that I used with, the places I used with, and the things were a part of my life. Now they're not a part of my life anymore. I felt lonely and I felt isolated, but I gave it enough time. Good things started to happen to me. The right people started to come around me. And I went through all the different emotions. One day I wanted to kill somebody. The next day I was crying. The next day I was happy. I wouldn't even say it was the next day. Every 10 minutes I was feeling a different emotion early in recovery. Head is all over the place, absolutely scrambled. You know, like I said, in the psychosis, you have to come out of that then, you know, and it's very scary. You need to make sure when you're coming off a substance, you surround yourself with the right people, because suicide is definitely something that is going to be in the back of your mind because of these thoughts that you're experiencing. And you have to remember, when you've been abusing a substance for so long, it doesn't just get better overnight. So it took a long time. It took a long time for my head to start to come back and think like a normal human being who hadn't been taking drugs. And what happens is, that's why people, they either relapse or they end up taking their own life, because they can't deal with what's going on inside their head. It's an absolute, like, it's a horrible. I swear I would not wish. Yeah, it's a dark place. I would not wish the psychosis on my worst enemy. I really wouldn't, because it's a very, very hard place. But there is a way out of it, and that's surrounding yourself with good family, good friends, and talking to people. Always talk about those thoughts. When you talk to somebody, you take the power out of the thought straight away.
It nips it in the bud, like.
If you hold on to that thought is winning, you know, and that has control. It has control of you, and it's as simple as that. The best way I can describe a psychosis is it comes everywhere with you. You cannot get away from it. I went to work, it came with me. I went to the park, it came with me. It's with you 24/7. So you need to find ways to deal with it, and that's the scary part. You wake up and you know that you have a day ahead of you experiencing those mad thoughts again, you know, and it's hard, you know.
Yeah, I definitely have never been in that position, and I'm grateful that I haven't. But I can't even imagine what sort of pain you went through. When you say voices in your head and telling you to do bad things, have you ever, you know, said to yourself, were you ever close to, you know, taking that step and saying maybe you're right, and, you know, moving towards taking your own life? Was that ever a thought in your head? Like, was that ever nearly a possibility for you?
Yeah, 100%, Andrew. And I'll be completely honest, right? I was a very, very selfish person, you know, very selfish person. So I'd almost say I was too selfish to take my own life. But I didn't want to die, right? This was the thing. I didn't want to die, but I didn't want to live how I was living anymore. So that was the kind of limbo you're caught in. I had a daughter who I absolutely adore. She's my world, you know. And I wanted to be the best person I could for her, but I couldn't get out of this rut that I was stuck in. And the longer your addiction goes on, the more mistakes you make, the more misery it causes to yourself and to others around you. It's actually harder on the people who love you, because they're seeing this destruction. The pain that I caused on me was inflicted by myself. The pain that I caused on others, they could not control. and it's very, very hard for them to sit back and watch this unfold and not be able to do anything about it, you know.
Yeah.
And I caused a lot of pain and I caused a lot of hurt in other people's lives, which is stuff that I have to deal with in my own time, in my recovery, which is part of your recovery, you know. And so that's it really, like, you know, that's the tough one, is coming in and dealing with what I done to me. I can deal with what I done to me, but what I done to others is what I can't deal with. That's the stuff that eats me up.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that eats me up, you know, and the guilt and the shame around it, you know. But what I learned is there's no place for that in recovery, because that's the stuff that will lead you back into your addiction.
Yeah.
You need to forgive yourself. You need to forgive that person. And that's what I've done today. I've learned to forgive the old David, and I'm going to say it, I love the new David, and love is in a way of not like, oh, I love myself, you know. Like,
you love who you're becoming.
Oh, yeah.
You love your new identity.
I love who I'm becoming. Exactly. Yeah. I love who I'm becoming. I like this person now, and
that's great to hear.
I can sit with myself, you know. I've got my soul back, you know, like, 'cause that drug completely ripped the soul out of me. It took me soul, me sanity. It took financially. It took everything off me. It literally took everything away from me, you know. And slowly but surely, I'm getting that back, like, you know.
That's amazing. That's what I was actually going to ask you, man. I was going to say, like, two things. Sorry, just before I move on to that, I just wanted to ask you one question about the relapse part, because there's a certain thing in life, you know, when you make progress in life and you kind of fall back into your own habits, you feel like shit, but that must be heightened when you're in recovery, and then you relapse and you throw it all away, because the people that are probably supporting you feel like you're letting them down as well. What was that mental aspect like on you at that time? And then all them setbacks, has that made you mentally stronger today?
100%. You hit the nail on the head there. So when you come into recovery, you get educated. You get educated on addiction, and you get educated. And then when you have all this knowledge, so there's a saying in NA, and it's a very good saying. If you have a head full of knowledge and a belly full of drugs, it's a bad combination. So that's referred to when you relapse. You have all this knowledge in your head of what this substance is doing to you, and then you go and you take it. It fucks your head up even more, it does, because like you said, I now have the guilt of knowing what this is doing to you, but I'm still taking it. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over again and expecting different results. That's the definition of insanity, and that's exactly. I have tried every single way to use cocaine. I have changed the people I use it with. I've changed the places I use it. I've done everything I can to try use the drug successfully. Because, like I said, I loved cocaine. I loved it. Yeah. It was a part of who you were, like. I'm not going to say I didn't, you know, and not every single bit of me using was miserable, but the end of it was completely miserable. And so I think, like, you're right. It's very, very hard to but what they say is when you come into recovery, relapse is part of recovery. Now, I would almost change that phrase for someone, because that almost gave me the green light to relapse. You know, when someone said that to me, it almost gave me the green light. Like, I remember walking out of that room when the guy said to me, and he didn't mean go out and take drugs. Like, you know, it was just they have to inform you about the relapse. But when you're kind of young and you're naive, you're like, well, he said you can relapse. So
one time won't hurt, I'll be all right, like.
Exactly, you know, and that was kind of what was happening to me, and but like I said, it just got darker. It got darker every time, and it was it just got and like that, you just, like I said, you add more shame and you add more guilt, and then when you come back into your next recovery, you have to deal with all the other emotions. It's a horrible cycle, man. It's a revolving door. It's just a revolving door. And you know, it's a very difficult one to get right. You know, it's very difficult, and I think that one of the reasons why it's very hard to get it right in this country in particular is because it's not addressed as a mental health issue. Addiction is not seen as a mental health problem by the government, by the state. It is not seen as a mental health problem, but it is a mental health problem. What I have learned is, I thought for a long time I had a problem with drugs. I didn't. I had problems which caused me to use drugs. So I had problems in my life. The drugs were a symptom of my problem. I picked up the drug because I couldn't deal with what was going on in my head. I was mentally unwell, and I found something that gave me an escape, you know?
Yeah.
And it did give me an escape for a long time, and then the drugs stopped working. And what I mean by the drugs stopped working, they stopped giving me that escape. They made my head worse. You know, at the start, they were good. They took me away. I had a great time. Then, the longer I progressed, I just went into a really, really dark place. Got worse all the time, you know?
Yeah. That's truly, like, what a remarkable journey. Like, looking back on it now, and someone who's been through what they've been through, what's life like for you in perspective? Like, what's life like for David at the moment?
Yeah, that's a good question, Andrew. And one of the first things that they said when I came into NA, if you stay in NA and you listen to the suggested things, that you'll get the life beyond your wildest dreams. And I was like, the life beyond my wildest dreams? Like, what are they offering me in here? Like, you know, like, when someone says that to you, am I going to get a nice car off them or something? Like, you know, like, this is how fucked up your head is, and when you come into recovery, you know?
Yeah. Fuck's sake.
Do you know what? I'm this far down the line now. I'm nearly a year now at NA, and they just gonna give me my life back, man. They're gonna give me my my life is very simple now. I walk, I meditate, I try to eat the right foods, and I walk out. You know, that's part of my recovery. It's when you get a routine. It's actually, once you keep the recovery very, very simple.
Yeah, like, so you can stick to it.
Meditation only takes 10-15 minutes out of your day.
Yeah.
You feel amazing. A meeting is an hour of my day, and walking out is another hour of my day. You know, it's not a whole lot to give. And then what I can do is then I can go and I can have a nice life with my family, with my daughter, and that's it. Like, I'm enjoying the journey. Like, I really am. At the start, it's difficult because you're still dealing with the psychosis and stuff like that. But I'm just enjoying. I'm just seeing what life is going to bring. And the difference is, today I can deal with life's problems. I'm living life on life's terms now. Yeah. I can deal with my problems in the right way. I don't have a desire to use drugs anymore. I don't wake up in the morning and want to use coke anymore. That desire has completely left me. But that does not mean that I cannot get triggers and I cannot fall back into that trap, you know. You have to be very switched on. And like I said, you can keep your recovery simple, but you can't take your eye off the ball either with it, you know. You do have to. It's a daily reprieve. Someone said this to me and it was very good. You can't function on yesterday's food the same way you can't function on yesterday's recovery. So you must get up and you must do the same things that kept you clean the day before. It's one day at a time, you know.
One step at a time, exactly. Yeah.
It really is. There's lads in those rooms 20 years clean, like I said, and they're logged on to meetings 20 years clean. Why? Because they need to be reminded why they don't want to go back into that place again.
Yeah.
They need that reminder. The newcomer is the most important person to any meeting, because he is the one that reminds everybody in that room of that dark place. They're coming in and you see them, they're full of fear, they're full of anxiety, they're coming off the substance, and you're just like, I do not want to go back there again, you know. Yeah. And that's the powers of the rooms. Everybody is keeping everybody clean and alive.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, Andrew, this is life or death we're talking about here, and it's as simple as that. Yeah. That's as simple as that. What's life or death out there, you know? And I pick life any day now, you know. I escape death and just about, And I'm all about like making sure that I have a good future, and I provide for my daughter, and I can just, but you know what, I want to make me family proud. I want to make me ma proud in particular. You know, I want her to look at her son, and I want her to be proud of who I've become. Like, you know, I want to give that back to me ma. Like, you know, so that drives me on every day. When I have a tough day, I think about those things. Yeah, 100%, man. Yeah.
And I think, David, as well, like I can't admire you enough for it. Like, I genuinely can't. It's mental health, and especially me coming from Ballymun. Like, I'd be lying to you if I said I haven't seen drug abuse or people dying, or you know that I knew of. You know, growing up around the area. I think as well, man. Like, there's one thing being educated, you know, like through the college or school or whatever, but life experiences is a different kettle of fish, isn't it? And I think you have an abundance of it now, and you've been through them hard knocks, should I say. You have your daughter now, you have your family, and you have the right path, and now you're helping other people along the way. So that in itself is going to give you the building blocks to eventually, you know, get away from that completely and become, I know it's your journey, but it's like it's a new chapter for you. Would that be fair to say?
100%. Yeah. You got it, yeah, completely right, Andrew. You know, like in a weird way, I kind of look back now. Do I wish I didn't go through that pain and that misery? Yes, but I did, and I'm here today, and it shaped me into the person who I am today.
Yeah.
The David, I was David, and I got lost. You know, I got lost in the addiction, and here was speaking to you right now. Was in there trapped somewhere, wanting to get out, like, you know. Yeah. There really is, there's two people. There's the person who you lost, and then there's the addict, you know. The person who you lost to the addiction, you know. And that's the thing, like, and anybody who's never experienced, they look down on people with addiction issues or something like that, just remember that someone's son, someone's daughter, someone's, you know. Because addiction, it doesn't discriminate, you know. It can hit anybody. It can really hit anybody, you know. Yeah. So I just think be a little bit more mindful towards, because you don't know what those people have gone through to put them in that position. You really don't, you know. And I've heard some of the stories I've heard in the room. It's just like, man, my story is nothing compared to theirs, you know. There's people out there who can change the world, man, with their stories. They really could, like, you know. And when I went into NA, I said to myself, addiction or no addiction, anybody could log on to one of those meetings and get inspired, because you just get inspired by what these people have come through, you know. It's amazing. It really is amazing. And they're in those rooms and they're telling their story, helping others, and they're probably doing some work outside. Everybody, we're all on our own journey, you know.
Exactly. Wow, it's mental. I think as well, David, what you said there as well, it's people, there's a stigma around drug addiction. There's people look down on it. People say he's just without being using too much language, like he's a fucking junkie or whatever it is. It's very easy for someone just to say that, but realistically, when you look and you boil it down and you break it down, it stemmed from, like, yours stemmed from a mental health issue which led into where you went. So, you know, you're not born into that. It's bad environments, bad decisions, and everybody, you know, needs to be treated as a victim and not a criminal. It's criminalized in Ireland, whereas if I think it's in Portugal, they'll actually test your drugs for you. They'll actually test your drugs for you. Is that?
Yeah, you're 100% right, Andrew. That was something that that's very important to touch on, actually. Yeah. So what Portugal done was, and it sounds really extreme to people, Portugal have decriminalised all drugs, right? So by decriminalise the drug, you take the criminal aspect out of it for the addict. Now, that doesn't mean that you can stand on the corner selling drugs. You still get arrested, you still get sentenced, you still get locked up. But in Ireland, if I'm caught with some drugs and it's personal use, I'm brought back to the station, I'm charged, I'm brought through the system, and I'm kicked back out, right? In Portugal, what they do is they bring you to the services. So if I'm caught with a big amount and it's personal and I get a sentence for it, I have to go in and do a year or two, come back out more mentally fucked because I've just done prison time, and then they'll put me into the services. Whereas in Portugal, where it being decriminalised, this is just like a brief breakdown of what I know. You just automatically, they push it in the right direction for the health, and they've had something like an 80 to 90% success rate. It's completely...
It's like insane.
The drug, I also believe that Switzerland have followed suit in the exact same. And the other, do you know what it is, Andrew, as well? And it's not only that they cared about the addicts, what they do is they cared about their streets being clean. So what that it does everything. It gives the addict help. It actually almost takes the drug dealer out of the equation. It cleans up the street. So it nearly does everything in one swoop. Now, it's obviously, there's a lot of things you need to put in place. A lot of money that needs to be involved in that, like I'm assuming, like, you know. And so I believe if you're a heroin addict, and I'm pretty sure this is true, if you're a heroin addict, right, and like we spoke about earlier on, heroin addict is a physical dependency. You're really, really sick if you don't get it. So what they can do is they get prescribed heroin. They can go to an injection centre if they smoke it, if they inject it, and they go and they take their drugs freely. And it's just looking at it. It's looking at it as they're addressing it as a mental health problem. Yeah. And that's the way it needs to be addressed. You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wasn't born an addict, Andrew. I wasn't born an addict, but like you said, certain circumstances happened in my life which led me to become an addict, to pick up a drug and to suppress my feelings. And I'll always be an addict because I can't use that again. I can never use again successfully. I wasn't born an addict, I became an addict, and I will always be an addict. I will always have those traits. And as long as I am okay with not being able to use that substance for the rest of my life, I have surrendered to my addiction today. The difference is I've surrendered to it. I have held my hands up. I have said I am powerless over this addiction and I need help. And I'm okay with that today. I'm okay with the fact that I can't associate myself with those areas in my life anymore. And look, don't get me wrong, it's a long road, you know, but I feel like I'm making a lot of leeway this time, you know, and I'm happy with how I'm progressing, you know.
That's truly amazing, man. Like you can honestly, you can. I know you can hide it and stuff like that, and people are good at masking addictions, but you can honestly get a genuine feeling that you're. You know, we've only met today, but I can get a sincere, genuine feeling of you that, like, you know, this is going to be something that's part of your life, progressing through life and helping other people and talking about what you've overcame in a positive light. And I think on the Portugal thing as well, man, to the best of my knowledge, they'll give you a safe amount of dosage, a clean needle. They'll, you know, allow you to do it in a safe environment. You won't be sleeping on a street or whatever it is. And I think that's very important that Ireland need to adopt that method, and all countries need to adopt that method of that. You know, it's not a criminal thing. Yes, crime does happen, but you know, you're a victim initially when you're starting. You don't just wake up one day and think we're gonna fucking do this and the other. It stems slowly, and you're a victim confined to the abuse of it, and then it might lead into crime or whatever else. But it stems from being a victim, and I think you've
exactly. You know, and I don't ever condone what addicts do to get their drugs. I don't condone. I rob from my family. I rob from people. You know, and like, you know, like there's always that, like, oh well, he'd rob from an old woman on the street. You know, like when someone's in the depths of addiction. You know, yes, addicts do that. Is that acceptable? No, it's not acceptable, right? But people without addictions also do those types of things as well, you know.
100%.
So, that addict was probably sitting in a corner begging for money somewhere. He couldn't get enough to get it. This is not me justifying it, but this is me just painting the picture.
Yeah, explaining
it. And the last resort for him was probably he sees a woman and he sees a bag and he sees an opportunity, and he's not thinking about the bigger picture. He's just thinking about the drug. And I rob from my ma all the time. I stole from the ex-partner. I took money from my daughter's savings, you know. Am I proud of it? No, I'm not. That's the stuff that eats me up, you know. But that was not me. Who I am sitting here today, that is not me. Would I go and I do those things in my right mind? No, I wouldn't. And I think people need to realise that I did do those things. I hold my hands up to them, and I'm not proud of it. But it's something that it comes with addiction, unfortunately. You know, it does come with addiction. I never robbed someone on the street. You know, I robbed from my own. I held down a job like for the whole time. Like I was a functioning addict. Like, you know, I'd miss days here and there. You know, but so I would hold down a job most of the time. You know. But yeah, I think that was a good one that you touched on, the Portugal one, because I think that method should be adapted in every country. I think that's completely right. I think like a lot of people, when you say to someone, Andrew, decriminalise a drug, they're like, what? No.
They don't, yeah.
Straight away that comes into your head, right? But heroin is here since the 80s. It's not going anywhere. It's getting worse.
Yeah.
Cocaine is getting worse. Crack cocaine is big now as well. So it's not getting any better. It's getting worse. So what we're doing is not working. We need to try new ways, like, you know.
Manage it.
And you need to look at Portugal have a blueprint, and I'm pretty sure that Switzerland are either thinking about doing it or are already doing it.
Yeah.
And I think it will come around to most countries, but Ireland, backwards in a lot of ways. We'll probably be one of the last to do it. Let's face it, Andrew. Like, you know, we'll definitely be one of the last ones to put it in place if it does start to take off around Europe and stuff, like, you know.
100%.
But like, addiction's everywhere. It's in every country. It's in every corner of the globe. It's in every corner of Ireland. Like, you'll find it anywhere. Like, exactly. You will, you know.
And like you said, I think that's very important, David. The drugs aren't going away, so it's how do we manage it as a country, as human beings? You need to manage expectations. People are going to take drugs. I know in Amsterdam, if you want to take an E, you can get it tested, and they'll tell you if it's safe or not. Yeah. But down in the festivals down here, you know yourself, you're young, you want to fucking take a pill or whatever, have a good time at a festival. You're only 19, 18, whatever it is. You could get a pill, you don't know what's in it, and you could die. But in Amsterdam, they know people are going to take them, but they just get it tested right. That's safe. I wouldn't take that. There's X, Y, and Z in that, and they're able to, you know, save lives. Because you can't stop people from taking drugs at the end of the day, but you can manage it. And
100%. Yeah, it's the way forward, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%, man, 100%. Yeah, look, David, that's been absolute. I don't even know how long we're recording. That's brilliant, man. And look, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no, it was a pleasure coming on and being able to tell me story. And I thank you for having me on, because, like I said, this now is a big part of my recovery. You know, it's a massive part of my recovery. So you've been a part of my recovery now as well. So thanks for that as well, Andrew, and I appreciate that. You know,
man, that's absolutely fantastic to hear. And look, come here, to be honest, I'd love to have you on again, man, down the line, 100%, and I'd love to stay in touch with you as well, because I think what you're doing is fantastic, and it's definitely what I'm all about. I like to try and help people, or you can obviously influence people a lot more than me with what you've been through, but, you know, I'm always open to lending an ear or listen to someone or wherever it is, but definitely I'd like to stay in touch, and 100%, man, get you on again if you'd be more, like, maybe down the line, a few months down the line.
Yeah, 100%, man, and congratulations on setting up the podcast as well. I'm going to be watching now. I'm sure you're going to do great things. You know, you definitely you asked all the right questions there for me anyway, and you got the best out of me there, really. You know, like, I can only answer the questions that I'm given, so nice one for that as well. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and look, thanks for coming on again and being so honest. I just wish we could have done this person. I could have got a haircut off you. I only realised you were a barber. Well, definitely. What barbers do you work?
I'll hook you up anyway.
We'll
chat over Instagram, and I'll look after you. I will. All right.
Yeah, 100%. Right, so we'll end it there. And anyways, David, just before I let you go, is there anywhere, if you want to tell people where they can find you? I know you have your Instagram page, David McGrath. You have the recovery. Is that you have a separate recovery page as well?
Yeah. So it's called recovered recovered in 1909.
Or leave it in the.
It's just there's a few videos there from me, and like I said, other recovering addicts got involved, and a few addicts actually got spreads in the newspaper and stuff like that, telling their story. One was on the radio as well. Very experienced people around recovery have amazing stories. So there's a lot of identification on the page there for anybody who wants to go on.
Brilliant, brilliant.
Yeah.
I'll leave them in the comments, and then at the end, and thanks to shout out to Leon as well for putting you on to me, because as soon as he said it, man, and told me a story, I couldn't wait to do this, and I know you were eager to do it as well. So look, absolutely delighted with how it went, man.